This, being the GameCube controller, is the second best controller of all time. It's comfortable in the hand, it has an amazing button layout, and the analog triggers are unmatched to this day. Take that, PS5, and don't give that nonsense out of the D-pad and C-stick being too small. They're still perfectly usable, okay? Now, the reason why I say it's only the second best controller is because of this. The GameCube Wavebird, which is basically a wireless version of the exact same thing. And this is in an era, by the way, when wireless controllers generally sucked, but this one freaking killed it. The connection was almost entirely reliable, and the battery life lasted for literally forever. I don't know what kind of perpetual motion technology they figured out for this thing, but I don't think I ever had to change the batteries at all on it. It is amazing. And it seems like Nintendo realizes how good these controllers are because they've been supporting them now for over 20 years, with support in every Smash Bros. Game since Smash Bros. Melee, even going so far as to make a GameCube adapter for the Wii U that also worked on Switch, and even republishing the GameCube controller with a Smash icon in newer times, or more recent times. So obviously Nintendo knows this is a great controller, and it seems like the GameCube controller may still have some life left in it thanks to a recent FCC filing from Nintendo for a new controller, seemingly for Switch 2. So let's start off with point 1. Why do we think this is a Switch 2 filing? Because if we zoom in here on the label for it, we can see it's using the BEE abbreviation, which is something we already know is the abbreviation for the Switch 2 itself. Similar to how HAC with the Switch 1's abbreviation, or code name, or whatever it was, and GameCube used DOL, which is short for Dolphin, being its own code name. So that basically confirms that this is a Switch 2 controller. Now, this doesn't tell us that it's a GameCube controller, but we look at this diagram here, someone on Family Boards, being LIC, notice something interesting, because that label where the FCC information goes on the actual product itself is in a very odd location. Typically, it goes in the center of the controller, or the center upper portion of the controller, but that's the only area big enough to really contain it, or flat enough at least. Whereas there really isn't anywhere else on the controller for it to go. But they noticed that on the GameCube controller, that is exactly where the FCC filing is, right behind the C-stick on this flat portion, which you can see right here. And as it turns out, if you overlay the GameCube image on top of that diagram, look what happens! That label is exactly where the FCC filing is. So that essentially makes it extremely likely that this is a GameCube controller. Now, some have speculated, could it be another new controller, maybe a Pro controller for Switch 2? But that's pretty unlikely for a few different reasons. One, already because of the label we mentioned. Two, though, is the fact that this controller in the filing apparently will not have NFC technology, which is how Amiibo work, which we already know based on patents filed by Nintendo recently, or at least discovered recently, will have NFC technology in the Joy-Cons, and presumably also the Pro controller. That way you can still use your Amiibo like you always have been able to on Switch 1, especially for backwards compatibility. So to recap real quick, we know for a fact there's going to be a Switch 2 controller, and we're speculating it could be the GameCube one, again based on how the diagram lines up with the current GameCube controller, which is super exciting. But then there's a question of why are they bringing a GameCube controller to Nintendo Switch 2 when you could already presumably use the existing USB adapter to play with existing GameCube controllers? Well, as you might recall, there's a little program called NSO in which they provide access to a ton of retro games, all of which so far being, for the consoles at least, being the NES, Super NES, and N64, have all had custom controllers made in the original shapes of the originals, just now being wireless, specifically Bluetooth. And as it turns out, this controller also is Bluetooth compatible, which makes it extremely likely this is going to be the NSO controller for the GameCube, meaning GameCube is almost certainly coming to NSO on the Switch 2, which is why it's a Switch 2 product, which on its own is super exciting. There are so many great GameCube games that haven't been remade or remastered, and even those don't always better the originals, so it will be amazing to have those on a portable system in the form of Switch 2, which I myself cannot wait for this. It's a fantastic system with a fantastic controller. You guys are in for a treat. Now, putting that aside for a moment, that doesn't mean this can't work on Switch 1 as well. All it means is that, GameCube NSO probably won't work on the Switch 1, but there is still the possibility this could work and possibly be recognized by games that already support the GameCube controller, like Smash Bros. Ultimate, for instance, and it may be cross-generational compatible. Now, again, that's just speculation. For right now, we only know it works on Switch 2, but with it being Bluetooth, it could very easily work on Switch 1 as well if Nintendo wanted it to. So there we go, everyone. That is the news, which is really exciting, and that seems like a GameCube controller is definitely definitely coming to Switch 2, or at the least a new controller is coming to Switch 2, which we're speculating is GameCube. If it's not GameCube, I'd be curious to find out what it is, but again, everything is lining up for this to be a GameCube controller available for Switch 2, and I cannot wait, both for the controller itself, which I would love to use on any other game imaginable, but also the GameCube library, presumably coming to Switch Online, which makes sense because they're going to need a new platform to really kind of pump those numbers, right? In addition, though, regardless of when Nintendo actually announces this, we will find out for sure, if not before then, by September 2025 this year, because that's when the SEC themselves will show off the proper controller in full. So Nintendo's on the timeline here. So if we don't find out about it on April 2nd, we'll find out again by September. By the way, I forgot to mention, I think, that this will be the new best version of this controller, because it should have the exact same form factor as this, being a perfect shape, along with wireless technology that rivals, if not surpasses possibly, the Wavebird. It's combining the two best elements of these together, so it'll work on Switch 2, and that is super exciting. So there we go, that's it everyone. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this? Are you excited for the GameCube controller and it coming to Switch Online? I gotta hear about it. So with that, thanks for watching, we'll catch you later. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more. Bye everyone!